Good morning. I'm Julio Saenz along with Mauricio Riveros. Today we'll meet Greg Connors, founding partner at Connors and Ferris, and learn about their unique approach to working with clients.
We hope you will be inspired.
Celebrating leaders in Rochester's unique and vibrant business community, we'll meet entrepreneurs whose passion and perseverance have helped push through life's challenges. Join us as we share their stories and journeys to success. It's time to be inspired.
Hi, Greg. Thank you so much to Be Inspired, a show that we developed to inspire our community, interview people like you who have great stories and who have contributed a lot in Rochester. So let's start learning about who is Greg.
Wow, that's a loaded question, especially if you were to ask my mother that. I'm a small town guy. I grew up in Hornell, New York, which is 60 miles south of here, born and raised there. I went to Alfred University, which is down in the southern tier, again, just south of Rochester. Played football for 4 years at Alfred University, and then went off to the Midwest to law school. After I got to law school, my whole family was back here in Rochester. So I came back and started my career in law.
Wow, that is impressive. Now you have one of the largest firms here in Rochester. Congratulations for that. So tell us what exactly your firm, what type of cases do you deal with, and what's your experience in terms of the service that you provide?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Well, interesting. So we handle workers' compensation claims. So individuals that get hurt while they're at work. The interesting story behind how my business partner, Tom Ferris, and I got started in this area was that my grandfather was an Irish immigrant. And when his first job was working the railroad, and he worked his railroad his entire career. Well, growing up, I noticed that my grandfather didn't have all his fingers and got into questions as to why and how. And he talked about how he had got hurt on the job while he was working the railroad. Well, I grew some interest in that. And as I developed into my career and I had an opportunity to work with people who were injured on the job and jumped at the opportunity because it reminded me of giving back and helping out people like my grandfather, like my cousins, like my aunts and uncles. And then just kind of had a passion for it. It fit my personality. I'm a competitive guy. I love to help. I love to compete. I love to win. And this provided me a great platform for it. And so my business partner, Tom, he had a very similar story. His story involved his father, how his father at a young age got hurt on the job and the tumult that it caused within their household when he was a teenager. And it kind of stuck with him. And when he had the same opportunity to get things going and to go into this area of law, he felt a kindred spirit as well. And we've been blessed. We've got a great team who focuses on making sure that we provide the best service possible for people who are in difficult and challenging circumstances, just like our families have been through. And it's a very extremely rewarding opportunity to help people, to help everyday people that are working every day, providing for their families. And it's been a great experience for us, and we love doing it.
Fantastic. And I can see the passion for the work that you do. And I was wondering, at what point did you always have your own firm, or at what point did that light come on and say, I'm going to go and start my own thing?
That's a great question. I never really focused on doing anything, independent or for myself. I'm a team guy. So all the successes I've ever had in my life have been around, I've been a part of a team. It happened in football. It happened in basketball. And so I like being a part of a team. And so I never really thought of it as kind of doing my own thing or Tom and I doing our own thing. But in your professional life, you get involved, you get exposed to certain experiences. And you think if you could do it your own way, it'd be a little bit different. You'd focus a little bit more on one thing versus something else. And I had that experience. And my mom was a real estate agent. She had her own business. And I saw the pride she took in that. And I also saw the flexibility of the things that she could do for family, as well as do in the community. And my parents raised me to be very involved in the community. And so as I was progressing, my father encouraged me to get back into the community. And this provided me a platform where I had that flexibility. And it was the best decision I ever made. I'm part of a team. We get to focus on the things that are important to us and the people that are part of our work family, the Connors and Ferris family. And it's been a great, rewarding experience.
What interesting story, and the family connections and have experience in in life, with your own family, the situations. The question is, what is the proactiveness in terms of prevention? How we can avoid those type of things? Because in the end, I think companies, this is a business show, and we have a lot of people that we interview that own businesses, and they don't want to go in litigation. They don't want to have this type of problems. What will be your recommendation as an expert to create more prevention?
That's one of the things that's important when everything that we do, and even us I'm a small business owner, so I don't want to see my employees injured as well. And we want to make sure that they have the safest and the most, productive and efficient work environment possible. The best advice I can give anybody, and I give my buddies that own small businesses, is be a human being. Make decisions that you would want someone to make if it were your mother, if it were your father, or your siblings. Unfortunately, our business is a numbers business. No matter how safe you are, there's going to be an accident where something might happen that you can take all the precautions, you just can't avoid it. But in doing that and making it as safe as possible, treating people in a fashion and a manner for what you'd want to be treated really is probably the best prevention. Just being conscientious, having people work a 12-hour shift and then shifting it the next week to work, from midnight to 8. Just some of these little things that are common. I like to think it's common sense. It's how I'd want to be treated, or I'd want my family to be treated. Really can go a long way in terms of prevention.
Interesting. And as far as because there are, a number of, lawyers that you see out there on TV and on the radio and all that stuff. How do you differentiate yourself? It sounds like you care a lot about people. How do you, what's your philosophy on the customer service and how you treat the people that reach out to you?
That is our focus. Growing up as a kid, one of the things that I would hear from my family members was how their attorneys never returned their phone calls. I'd call the attorney would get back to me a week later or several days later. And so when Tom and I started the business, our number one focus was treat others as if it were our family. So if my mom or dad or my brother called up their lawyer, they called for a reason. They want to get some responsiveness. We have a rule. You call back that night. It's not within 24 hours. We want to make sure that we get back to our clients the day they call in. Now, having flexibility, because a lot of us are parents now, is that, things come up, life happens. So if we don't get back to you that night, we'll always get back to you by the end of the next business day. And for us, those were the things that people appreciated. We make sure that our clients received correspondence, that they were informed as to what was going on. Little simple things like that. Again, the basics in terms of principles of how you want to be treated really resonated with our clients and how we got the reputation of doing what we do and how we treat our clients. And then the other thing I think is just as important is that we grew in terms of our capacity to understand and appreciate it's about being prepared. Every time we go into court, every time we have a settlement conference, anything like that, we want to make sure that we are prepared to the utmost. One of the things I learned playing football was within the competition is that the key to success was being prepared. Always make sure that we're more prepared than our opponent. And that's the way we like to do it. And the attorneys that have joined our team, they have that same competitiveness and that same drive to always make sure that we're more prepared than our opponent when we go into court.
And that is fundamental, because preparation is probably 90% of the thing, and is the delivery and really prove the facts when you are in court or when you are in a settlement agreement. The question is alternative solutions, arbitration, mediation, mechanisms of find ways to avoid court. What's your recommendation? Is trying to really get an agreement, and sometimes people need to settle, right? Hopefully they can settle and can be compensated in a way. What's the best approach? What's the best recommendation? I know it's a generic question, but what's the best approach?
So I always look at it as a lawyer, our responsibility to our client is to make sure that they understand the benefits and the detriments to the circumstances. And then they have a choice. It's our responsibility to show and to demonstrate to them what the scope of the possibilities are, and then allow them to make an informed adult decision, as we always talk about. Because there are some instances, when you negotiate, which is something that's always important to be able to do, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, particularly when people are in economic circumstances, challenged economic circumstances, and health concerns. If it's a fair opportunity, then you always want to try to resolve it in the most efficient way possible. But there are circumstances where one party isn't quite being as fair as they should otherwise be. Well, you can't be afraid to go in there and demonstrate and prove to the judge that this person deserves and is entitled and eligible for these types of benefits. Candidly and admittedly, 90% or so of the issues are resolved through negotiation and through resolution without having to go and litigate and have a full-fledged litigation process. And that actually encourages the efficiencies of the systems so that people can get the money that they need to take care of their families and the medical care that's necessary so they can try to get back to work. That's one of the things, getting back to the other question, is one of the things that I think distinguishes us from other law firms that actually do what we do is our primary focus is trying to get our clients back to work to be productive citizens and community members. Unfortunately, there are times where people's injuries can't allow them to do that because of limitations and educational backgrounds and whatnot, but we still want them to be back in the community being productive. And when you can have that and it gets together, those are the things that really make a successful outcome.
And as a business owner, how do you find the right people to hire to make part of it?
I wish I had the magic ball or the right answer to tell you for that. What we've tried to do is that our big thing with the people that we have that work with us, we're a family, we're one big team, is we feel we can always teach you what you need to know about our subject matter, our area of law. What we're looking for are who's going to fit in, their personalities, what motivates them, what drives them, what are their values. Because if they share our values, they're going to buy into what we do and they're going to understand what that commitment is. And they're going to do it because that's who they are. We can teach them what they need to know in terms of the subject matter. So for us, the big thing is, do they fit in? Do they contribute and add to the team? Do they add to the family? Some of the challenges that we've had with personnel in the past, as I'm sure business owners all, no matter what the sector is when people come in, they just don't share that value. They just don't have that same circumstance of drive to focus on what is your mission, what is your business. And so for us, it's been trying to find that person. And I'll tell you, it's not easy. We've been challenged. We were looking for an attorney in Rochester for over a year to find that right person to come in that shared that drive, shared that passion, shared that mission. Fortunately, we were able to find one. But we weren't going to compromise. We wanted to make sure we had the right fit because one of my coaches always said, one player doesn't win championships, but one player can lose them. They can lose that team, and so we always try to make sure that everybody on our team has that same focus and same mission in mind.
Well, thank you, Greg. We'll be back with more after these messages.
So, you can try to use certain techniques. I'm sorry, is it hot where you are? You seem to be sweating. Certain things of that nature, you try to highlight so the judge might appreciate it.
Well, I think we're both super impressed with how far technology has changed the way things are operate. Now, how has COVID impacted your workflows given all this digital technology?
I'll tell you, it's interesting. Our business itself is a numbers business. So when the employment numbers went down, everything that we did went down with it. The business itself, the way the court is handling things right now, they're on they're on approximately a 4 to 6 month cycle. So the court cases that were scheduled from March to May were already scheduled back in February. So that part of COVID, we didn't really have a reduction in hearings at that time because they were already scheduled. But subsequent to that, when you got into June, July, August, there were some challenges in terms of trying to get access to hearings because of the people were working remotely and they weren't able to process certain things. And some of the efficiencies weren't as strong with them working remotely. So some of those cases in our appearances were diminished a bit. In terms of our business base itself, with COVID, the impact has really been because it's the numbers, with the number of workers that were reduced, there just aren't as many people working, so injuries don't occur. And the number of people working from home, actually, home is a safer place to work from than in a business, in an office setting. So there has been some adjustments to that. So the technology has helped some of the safety measures working from home. There's some minor adjustments we need to make for our business plan and our business model. But as long as there's people that need us to answer questions and help get their medical care and their benefits for their family, we're here for them.
So this takes me to the immediate question is, well, COVID is creating new type of threats on safety at work and be able to, create the proper conditions for workers to make sure that they don't contract the virus. What the legislation and what's the progress around that? And there is already cases about COVID people claiming and saying, well, I get COVID because my employee forced me to go to this job or to do something. What's the evolution around that?
Well, that's an extremely complicated question, which I'll try to boil down because there is a lot that is to that. One of the things with workers' comp, and I've talked to many employers about this, is that the exposure that has to occur on the job has to be arising out of it in the course of your employment. And so it's very difficult to identify what the exposure was. So the analogy previously is if you worked at a place that had chemical, you were exposed to certain chemicals. The law identified that you had to pinpoint which chemicals caused your condition, and you have to pinpoint the exposure. If you can't do that, then the conclusion was that there's no nexus or connection identifying the workplace exposure or potential exposure to the medical condition. The same thing truly is the basis for COVID. There is a presumption now, depending on your work, your job, your profession, as to the exposure. Someone who worked in the ICU unit that was dealing with COVID patients, if they come down with COVID, the presumption is that they contracted it while they're at work. The employers can rebut the presumption and say, well, there's all these reasons why it didn't, and then the judge will ultimately make the conclusion. For somebody who's working in like a law office, if somebody in the law office comes down with COVID and says, well, we got it because of work, the presumption is we could rebut the presumption and say, well, nobody in the office had COVID. You weren't exposed to any clients that come in with COVID. So the judge would then would determine, did we rebut that presumption by saying it was COVID related because there wasn't any identifiable exposure, there was no nexus or connection between the workplace and the contraction of the virus. So there's a lot of nuances that go into this. And there has been several cases where the insurance companies have denied the claim, saying that they need to prove an exposure and need to prove a nexus between that. And so there's a lot of litigation that's evolving from that. The interesting thing about workers' comp is that in workers' comp, you only get paid benefits if you're out of work or work but earn less money on a temporary basis. And so in these circumstances, what we've seen is people who are contracting the virus and the condition are out of work for short periods of time. And therefore, the benefits that they're receiving are not these significant dollar amounts. There are some medical issues that are concerning because of cost, depending on the seriousness of the condition. But I've heard a lot of discussion from my colleagues who own businesses about these large verdicts or these large settlements they're going to be paying out monetarily because of it. And we're not seeing any of those or anything of that situation as of yet.
Very interesting. Thank you. That's really informative. I think a lot of business owners were thinking about that. Now, how do you, question about partnerships? You know, I've had businesses myself with partners. How do you balance the decision-making with your partner, or does one of you handle more of one side of the business than the other?
You know, again, we try to go about this as a collective, a collaborative decision-making. I've got tremendous partners. We all share that vision. We all share that mission. We don't always all agree. Right now, I'm the managing partner. And so what my role, I view my role as the managing partner is to make sure that I have all the perspectives of my partners. We have offices in Buffalo as well with partners there. And so we brainstorm, we talk about what the issues are, and I try to make sure that I understand and hear what their different perspectives are, and then utilize that in terms of the decision-making process. We, again, may all not agree with what the ultimate decision is, but hearing them and making sure that their concerns and their perspectives are heard and acknowledged and contemplated in the decision-making process, I think is the best way for anybody to go about that type of, decision-making. And we've been, again, I've got some great partners. We haven't had any issue that really has come in where there's been a significant discord about an ultimate decision that was made.
Greg, thank you very much to being Be Inspired. We really have learned a lot. It's interesting to see the different perspectives and the approach actually that you have, which is, partnership and really focusing in the end user, the end client, which is basically the people that you represent and that you protect. So thank you for that. And I'm sure that we will have you in future shows and see the evolution and progress in your organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great time talking with you guys. Really appreciate it.
To watch today's episode and the complete interviews of our guests, go to rochesterfirst.com/beinspired. For more great talk with Rochester's entrepreneurs, listen to Bodett 97.1, Saturdays at 9 a.m. For Mauricio Riveros, I'm Julio Saenz. We'll see you next week on Be Inspired.